What's up, guys? We are live. I've got Brian from Angling Anarchy on the podcast stream today, remotely. And Brian, I spent a lot of time in the last couple of days watching some videos, and I can tell you it's definitely an addicting channel. And I'm
Okay.
not a diehard muskie fisherman, so that's pretty rare as far as that goes in all of YouTube and stuff like that. Is finding something captivating that you're not extremely into, and maybe that's pushing more people into it, which is really awesome. So I don't get that feeling from a lot of channels. So congratulations there, man. If you want to
Thank
do
you.
a little introduction and stuff like that, kind of tell everybody what you do and how you got started in it. I'll just let you go from there, man.
Sure. Yeah, I guess I don't know where to start really, but I started fishing when I was a little kid on the Madison chain here in southern Wisconsin with my grandparents, and I was one of those kids that every time I went on a vacation and we drove past a body of water, I would not be worried about the destination we were going to. I'd be worried about what was in that body of water over there, whether it was a river or a puddle or a lake or that sort of thing. So I've always had a real passion for fishing, I guess. Um, Fast forward a couple of years, went on my first Canada trip in the early 90s, and that was the first time I had really encountered any game fish, smallmouth bass, walleyes, pike, that sort of thing. And that was actually the trip I caught my first muskie. I had this, it was actually a Bill Lewis Fire Tiger rattle trap that I was casting out towards a point, and this goofy fish kept following it in. And I just jigged it in front of its face and it smacked it, and it was almost kind of a my grandpa and my dad were almost kind of annoyed with me because they're this we're fishing for walleyes, not these stupid muskies. So I don't have a picture of that because it was just kind of shaken off unceremoniously at the side of the boat. But ever since then, I every trip that we went up there that year or in subsequent years, I would try to fish for muskies, and it really stuck hard in probably the mid 2000s. I went to Eagle Lake for one of the first times fishing with a friend of mine, and we spent most of our time muskie fishing, and that's when I really decided that's what I wanted to chase most of the time. I still fish for all sorts of, I'm a multi-species angler, I guess, but muskie's my real passion. And so yeah, in probably 2008, 2009 is when I made muskie fishing my the thing that I do pretty much all the time if I can get away with it.
Well, perfect, man. That's awesome. And you've got a pretty. I did say I watched some of the YouTube videos and stuff like that already. If you want to give a shout out to all your social media pages right away, if anybody
Sure.
has any questions on where they can find you at.
Yeah, the YouTube channel is just called Angling Anarchy. Facebook, Instagram. I think Instagram is angling_anarchy. Pretty much anytime you punch in Angling Anarchy, you should be able to find me. Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. I do have I've got a TikTok channel too, just for goofy stuff. I don't know. I'm kind of a goofy person. I like. I'm a 41-year-old that's got a 21-year-old trapped inside of it, I guess. So, yeah, I've got that too, just for silly stuff. But
Man, I've
yeah.
really tried hard not to make one. I've tried hard not to. It seems like that's becoming another one of those big social media accounts that you almost need now.
Yep.
You said you got how many posts do you have on there?
On TikTok, oh gosh, there's probably 15 or 20. I mean,
So you've gotten into it a little bit then.
yeah, some of it's the one thing that really got me into it, and there was kind of a trend. There's always trends on TikTok. There's always one thing that everybody kind of does, and then everybody follows that trend. And the one I saw was people were picking up a cup of coffee, and there was a Michael Jackson song in the background, and all his oohs and ahs and that sort of thing that he does. They would kind of go like that to the hot cup. And I thought, in fact, this is the bait I did it with, I think. I thought, well, if I was sharpening a hook, and then when I checked the hook, I went, just kind of, that was kind of the one that got me started. And I think it's got like 250,000 views, which TikTok wise isn't that much, but I guess for a dumb musky guy, it's kind of cool.
That is way more than I expected to hear. Really? That's, oh gosh dang, Zach, we're gonna have to make gonna have to come live on TikTok now. There's no doubt about that. That's awesome. So that's not fishing is not your full-time job yet. I'm assuming
Right.
that would be the dream.
Oh, I would love to, but I've kind of fallen into that trap where I've got a really solid job. I work for the city of Janesville, actually, as a chemist biologist at the wastewater treatment plant. So it's kind of one of those city gigs where it's good benefits and that sort of thing, but it allows me, I've got enough vacation time, and they're very good about being flexible, so I can go do all these fishing trips that I like to do. So that it works out pretty good that way, and I've been doing that for 16 years. So I'm also associated with Chaos Tackle, and I guess I'll try to tell that story and not make it too awful long.
Yeah, feel free, man. Go ahead.
Sure. Back in, I think it was 2008, I took my girlfriend's dad at the time. I don't think, or no, we may have just been married. I can't remember anymore. But so I guess for lack of a better term, I took my father-in-law to Eagle Lake in Ontario, and it was in July, and it was one of these trips where you would have thought it was November. We got up there, and I'm thinking it's going to be warm out. I've got shorts and a t-shirt and maybe some rain gear, and I think the average temp all week was maybe 50 degrees. I mean, you could literally see your breath when you were out in the boat. So pretty miserable as far as weather went. The fishing wasn't the greatest, but at the end of the trip, Rick caught a 48-inch muskie, a 4-footer, which is a pretty good size one. And from that point on, I think he was kind of hooked. So we did a couple of those trips in 2000, probably late 2010, 2011. He asked me if I wanted to start making bucktails, and I said sure. We can make time to make some, and so we started a company called Esox Assault Tackle. And for anybody that doesn't know, Esox, this is going to get a little nerdy. Esox is the genus of both the muskie and the pike. So muskie fishermen will they refer to the fish as Esox sometimes. So Esox Assault Tackle were the bucktails that we were making, and we would go to there's usually a half dozen or so muskie expos that happen in the Midwest. So we would go to those selling the bucktails, and Rick he owned a roofing and siding company in northern Illinois, and I could see he was getting more and more interested in selling the baits. And he eventually bought Chaos Tackle, which was owned by a gentleman named Jason Summers. I believe he was up in Minnesota. And Chaos Tackle had the Medusa. It was that big bait that I was holding. This is kind of the biggest one.
Yeah, that thing's huge.
Yeah. But so Jason, basically at the time when Rick bought it, there was a couple different size Medusas, and that was it. So Rick bought it. We made Chaos Tackle since it was a little bit more established company. We made that the umbrella name of everything we ended up doing afterwards. We expanded the sizes of Medusas that you can get. I believe there's 5 or 6 different size Medusas now. We've got a bait called Poseidon, a big swim bait. Grab that too.
Oh, for sure.
So we developed that. And then in years after, Rick picked up a couple other companies, Custom X Lures, which are crankbait, minnow style baits, Big Mama topwaters, tail style topwaters, walk the dog style topwaters, Shum Shum glide baits, and just recently we got Kodiak glide baits and dive and rise baits. So we pretty much have cover the spectrum of musky baits, whether it's a bucktail, a dive and rise bait, a rubber bait. We've got something for just about every application out there, and everything that we make is basically anything that can be wood is wood, other than basically the bucktails and the soft plastic baits. So.
Sure. Nice. That's awesome, dude. That's awesome. I did get into looking at some of the baits already a little bit. Now I know, I'm going to look at the camera right now because I know there's a bunch of people that have been asking us to do muskie at the Reel Shot. I'm trying my best to make it happen for 2021. However, on my list of new stuff is like 40 brands of new baits, new bass baits, new walleye baits, and that all requires money and inventory as well. So what the plan was we were gonna have a good chunk to put into muskie this year to start it. That number looks like it's getting smaller and smaller as we go, unfortunately. But I'm still going to pester Justin and do everything that I can to get muskie baits in for 2021. That was one of my big goals. I think it's a huge piece that we're missing. And Chaos Tackle is one of the brands that we were already looking into. So I can say from looking at it from a bait standpoint, I'm a huge tackle guy. Everything looks good and everything looks like it'll catch fish. You know, that's the biggest thing. Obviously, I'm trying to sell baits, trying to catch fishermen with the baits. But yep. I don't think there's a product that you guys that's under Chaos Tackle that looks like it won't produce fish.
Sure.
So,
and Rick's big thing when he started doing this, and to this day, it wasn't to become, I listened to the podcast you did with Mike Keys, and there's the old adage of, how do you become a millionaire in the fishing industry, and start with $1 million or start with $2 million or whatever.
Right.
It's not necessarily a huge money-making endeavor. So his goal is basically to have high-quality baits that are not ridiculously priced, because if you have spent any time on any of the Musky Facebook pages, you'll see baits that are north of $100. And there's reasons for that. There's boutique lure makers and the paint jobs on some of these. Sometimes I don't feel like you're actually buying a lure. It's more like you're buying a piece of art. Some of the paint jobs are just beautiful, and the amount of time they take to epoxy them. My friend Lee Tauken up in Madison, he has Lee Lures, and some of those are just
he was
fantastic.
On the list as well, by the way. Yep. His line of baits is certainly on the list of things to bring in if we end up doing it. So,
sure.
No, yep. But sorry to interrupt you there. It was just a
oh, no problem.
Side note.
I'm really good at getting on tangents as well. So, but yeah, that first trip I think is what kind of really got Rick and I doing this. And I think if I look back, my first couple, as far as getting into filming, my first couple videos are probably from 2012, 2013. I did the typical thing. I went out and bought a GoPro, and I thought, I'm going to strap this thing to my head. We'll catch some fish. When I watch the video, it's going to look like an episode of, Ian Fisherman or something like that. And you really quickly become disappointed when, you watch the footage and you're like, oh, that's 10 seconds when something happened is cool, but everything else is just, it's kind of boring. And going back to that Mike Keys podcast that you did, he was definitely one of the shows. Keys Outdoors was one of the shows that I was watching and thinking, okay, he's out here kind of, compared to what everybody else was doing, I call it guerrilla filming. He was out there by himself with GoPros, no cameraman, and just trying to capture things in real time, because that was the hardest thing. I've got videos from the mid 90s in Canada where, we had the video camera that's, the size of a 24 pack of beer that you're trying to hold on your shoulder. And for you to capture on film somebody catching a fish requires somebody to not be fishing. And in my group of friends, that just wasn't an option. So
sure, everybody wants to be casting.
Yes. So to be able to have these cameras that are so small and affordable for the most part, and that you can set up and have recording continuously, it really changed the game big time. And so yeah, between watching Mike's show and early on, Crash Mullins he's sort of the godfather of southern muskie fishing. He's unfortunately since passed, but him and his son were guiding down in Kentucky on Cave Run Lake, and we got to be friends with them. And they had a show for a little while called Catching the Bluegrass, and it was a muskie fishing show that they did down there. And so, like most kids that are into fishing, I always wanted to be on a fishing show. And I finally got my opportunity. I went down there and fished with Justin Mullins for one of the shows that they were taping, and they were doing it the old-fashioned way. I'd say they just had a cameraman in the boat, filming continuously. And I caught a couple fish. I got a couple muskies on figure eights, and I mean, it was really cool stuff. And just my luck, they kind of ran out of money for the production of the show, and this fantastic show that I was going to be able to watch myself on TV never materialized.
Really?
Yeah. So that was kind of fun. But while I was down there filming with them, I was thinking in my head, okay, I kind of know what Keys is doing. I know what they're doing. I'm going to try to get some cameras and see what I can do. And for sure, the first couple of years, like I said, it's disappointing, I guess, for lack of a better term, when you get all this footage, and if you don't know how to edit, it doesn't amount to a hill of beans. So over the years, I went from real basic, just using, I think it was Microsoft Movie Maker, just kind of comes on the computer. I would stitch together video, and then you eventually find some audio to put along with it. And then you realize that there's, if you watch any TV or any fishing show, they've got B-roll. They're basically, what is happening is those guys are trying to tell a story, and I think that's the mark that most people miss when they try to make a fishing video. Is they're just taking clips of the action that happens and they slap it together and they assume that, boom, this is going to look like a fishing show. And it turns out you need to take a couple minutes out every day to get that shot of the boat taking off, or the scenery, or whatever it is. It's B-roll, I guess that's what we call it. Is nothing. It's not the action, it's just the stuff that happens in between the action. And to be able to put that together in sort of a cohesive form and have it be interesting, it's a little bit of a chore. I mean, it's an endeavor in its own. I like to tell people that I think I'm just as obsessed with filming fishing as I am with fishing anymore.
Sure.
If I get out in the boat and for some reason I forget a camera or forget something, it just kind of ruins my day. And my buddies usually kind of get on me. They're like, "Well, just come on, let's just fish." And I'm like, "Well, what if something cool happens?"
Right. Now, going back to the filming side of things, you've got a pretty set schedule that you stick to. And
Yep.
And that's probably led to a little bit more of the success. What are you at, by the way, for subscribers? I think over 4,400, I think, is what I saw. I just wanted to verify that with you.
Yeah, it's 4,330 something right now.
Something like that, yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things that it's as soon as you get 1,000 subscribers, you want to have 2,000. As soon as you have 2,000. My goal for the end of the year, it was a lofty goal. I was going to try to hit 5,000, but the end of the year, it's weird too. Certain times of year are better than others for gaining subscribers. Definitely one of the best ways to gain subscribers is, like you said, to have a schedule. In fact, a lot of the YouTube videos that I watch aren't necessarily fishing videos, but they're videos that sort of help you on how do you maximize this, that, and the other thing on
Sure.
YouTube. And having a set schedule is at the top of the list if you want to try to gain a little bit of a following. But it's funny though too. This is one of those things. When I started, I said, I don't care if there's 5 people or 5,000 people watching me. I just enjoy the process of filming, coming back, seeing what you captured, and then trying to piece it together in some sort of cohesive fashion that is entertaining and hopefully makes a little bit of sense anyway. And for the most part, I look at it as hopefully people are entertained by it. I try to inject some tips and tricks, that sort of thing. I try to talk about what the water temp is, or what the technique is that we're using, or where we're fishing, why we're doing what we're doing. Sometimes that gets thrown by the wayside because you're just excited to start fishing too. But
Oh, for sure. So one of the things that I picked up while watching some of the videos, is you basically show and that's the thing with fishing and filming, especially muskies, and we kind of touched on this a little bit before we went live here, is there's not many specific muskie YouTubers, and that's because a lot of guys in the muskie community are very secretive of how they're fishing or where they are fishing. And I can tell you, like, I picked up a lot just watching the first 3 videos. I mean, I feel confident where I could go out and take the information that I learned from you, go and buy the correct gear, and head up to almost any lake in northern Wisconsin, it seems like, and go catch a muskie. Like, it gave me enough confidence to go and do that, which is awesome. Something, like I said, that's very rare in all of filming and all of YouTube. Basically, like you said, you give away as much as you can without giving away the body of water. So
that's much it. That's so I usually, the only time I say where I'm fishing is if I'm on the Bay of Green Bay. It's such a gigantic body of water. It's not a secret.
Right.
When I'm on Eagle Lake, I say that I'm up there because the place we stay, good friends of ours, so I want to give them as much, business as I can. The Coal Groves, Eagle Lake Lodge, where we stay up there, and then on the Madison chain, because it's pretty easy to pick out where we're at.
Very true. Very true.
But yeah, when I'm in northern Wisconsin, I say I'm in northern Wisconsin, or wherever. I'll give a region, but I'll try not to name a body of water because, like you said, it spots can get blown out. And I guess the way I like to look at it is I'm dating myself for sure here, but back when Lake Link was a thing, everybody's
it still is. It's more it's more in play than everybody still realizes. There's a lot of people that still check that. There's a lot of kind of like everything, it all comes back around. It got real popular and then kind of dropped off, and now it's kind of like it's at a dip right now, and I think it's people are posting on there. We'll just put it that way. I've seen a couple of things or heard a couple of things where people said, "Oh, I heard the bites on from Lake Link and stuff like that." Most of the time right now, it's social media, Instagram, Facebook, stuff like that. Somebody posts something or whatnot of a a picture of a good basket of fish or something like that, or a big muskie, and they show the exact background, or they'll actually label it in the location or something like that, and that's how it seems like it's becoming more, bodies of water becoming more pressured, is because people are tagging where they're catching fish, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, no. But specifically if you're fishing and filming and you enjoy catching fish where you're filming, it's probably a good idea to keep it a little bit on the down low as far as that goes.
There's definitely been times where I've had to edit out like a specific landmark or something like that, but like you said, I try to show as much as possible. I try to show measuring the fish, which I catch a little guff every now and again for measuring smaller fish, but like I try to explain in the videos every now and again, I'm a member of Muskies Inc. I keep track of all the fish. I work in a lab, for gosh sakes. I'm an analytical guy. I like numbers. I like to know exactly what something is. So I'll measure a 32-inch muskie so that when I register that fish on the Muskies Inc. lunge log, that's data that can be used by researchers. That's data that I want to be. I want to know that I put correct data and accurate data into that database. So, but yeah, I try to show everything. Even when we're goofing around in the boat, if something funny happens, I try to leave that in there. I try to keep the channel as PG as possible. So there's a lot of times I'm dropping audio. We swearing like sailors or something, and then of course that's when something happens.
That's one of the things. As somebody that does a little bit of filming and like stuff like this and stuff like that, it's noticeable to me, but not a lot of other people. Where it's like there's a cut. Yep. I'm the same way though, for sure, and I think most fishermen are, especially when you get excited. You got a big fish hooked up or something like that. Somebody misses a fish with the net. All sorts of stuff crazy. All sorts of stuff happens at that point. So, no fault there.
But it's one of those things where I going to the shows, the muskie shows and the expos. So I obviously always help in the chaos tackle booth. So I'm constantly bumping into dads with their younger sons, and I don't want to be the guy that they learn the F word from or something like that. So
Okay.
Try to keep it as PG as possible, but and that is just kind of builds your skill set when you're editing as well. It makes you be a little bit more. You have to use your brain a little bit more to get around some of those things.
For sure. No, that works, man. That's awesome. So it you kind of brought up young kids and stuff like that at tackle shows. Not exactly what I was leaning towards, but we'll steer it back in that direction. Do you have any advice for new and young anglers or anybody that might be watching this that's looking into getting into muskie fishing? Like, if you could go back and narrow it down to a couple specific tips that you wish somebody had told you 20 years ago or something like that, what would those be?
Well, I think first and foremost, there is a lot of, maybe not a lot because it is such a small niche. Muskie fishing is probably by far the smallest group of fishermen out there. I mean, it's eclipsed by bass fishermen, by crappie fishermen. Hold on just a second.
Yeah, no problem, man. All good. Just want to give a quick shout out. Nick, thanks for the comment. Jason, I'm sure he will we'll get back to you and stuff like that, but just reading some of the comments quick. Get a couple people comment on here on the stream, and I'm sure afterwards you seem like a very social guy and stuff like that. If you want to feel free to shoot these guys a comment or a like back and stuff like that. I'm sure you make that happen and stuff like that. But
yes, we're so rudely interrupted by my stupid alarm that I forgot to shut off. So, going on YouTube and watching videos, there's me, there's Chaz Martin, who's under Muskie Mastery. There's Lee and Robbie up in Madison. That's Today's Angler. They're probably the biggest, mostly muskie-based YouTube channel out there. They've got close to 50,000 subscribers. Doug Wagner Fishing, Burnin' Eights. Burnin' Eights are a couple guys in the middle of the state. They do some really nice videos. Matt Vavrach Fishing, MWA Muskies with Attitude. I'm trying not to leave anybody out. Just casting, because there's so few of us and we all kind of know each other.
For sure.
I've gotten in trouble before being on a podcast and forgetting to mention somebody, so I'm trying to hit all the high spots here, and I apologize if I missed anybody, but that's one good thing. And I think the other thing that people really need to do is become a member of Muskies Inc. and then go to your, and this is hard to do in the environment we find ourselves in with COVID, but the meetings that the chapters have, usually monthly, are great to go to because it's a bunch of guys. Once you're kind of in that little group, they're usually a little bit more, a little bit better about being loose with some information and helping, especially somebody new, helping them to get out on the water and to help them out. So those are probably the two biggest things that somebody could do to get started. And then, of course, the Muskie Expos, they're great to go to. They always have seminars at those, and other than two, I think everything else is canceled already for this upcoming expo season, unfortunately. But hopefully after this year, things will get back to normal. But yeah, that would be the best thing to do, I think.
Sure, that's awesome, man. Now, the other side of that is tips for filming and editing. I know, again, we just get questions, follow up, and stuff like that afterwards and whatnot. And while we've got you, might as well ask tips for editing. And if you have any shortcuts that you'd be willing to share, that'd be great. And then also what you're running as far as camera equipment and video editing software.
Sure. I'll start with the cameras. I typically run, so I run a pole that I've got set up in the boat. I built everything that I've got the cameras on myself. And I've got a couple videos on the YouTube channel where I go over how I set my cameras up. But I run a couple of cameras up on the pole to look at the bow and stern of the boat, kind of the guys at the front and back of the boat. I'll put a couple cameras on the gunnel to catch the on the water action. I always wear a chest mount, which I know a lot of people don't like, but this goes back to the telling a story. You've got your camera right here. Your audio is best right here. When you have something, when you want to show a bait, it's right in front of your hands as opposed to being one of the cameras on your head. I find it's more comfortable to wear. There's less movement with, back and forth than with a head cam. You definitely lose a little bit because sometimes your hands get in the way because the camera is right here. I've got a chest mount that sits a little bit higher up, and I don't tip it down. I usually leave it straight out. That way when you do lean over for a figure eight, you tend to catch more action. So at any one point, I've got 5 cameras running. I also have a drone that I try to get some shots with. My main camera that, once we get a fish and everybody's sort of settled down and we're ready to take the fish out, take a look at it, get a measurement on it. I've got a mirrorless Canon M50 camera with a nicer microphone on that, so that helps to up the production value a little bit. But yeah, for the most part, that's what I use. I know one thing. So moving over to editing, one thing that I see a lot that just drives me bonkers, and you probably see it too, is when somebody will get a shot, and I'm just imagining this is what they're thinking, is they get this shot of a fish jumping out of the water, and they're like, oh, that was going to look cool in slow motion. It's only going to look cool in slow motion if you have the proper number of frames.
Very true.
If you don't have the proper number of frames, it's going to look like junk. So my cameras that I said I have on the gunnel, that's the spot where a fish is going to jump, or when it's going into the net, you want to maybe slow it down. So I've got Hero 7 black cameras, which are capable of filming up to 240 frames per second. I usually do 120. That way, when you slow it down 5 times, you've got 24 frames remaining. 24 frames is sort of, you don't want to really go below that too much, because that sort of gives you that cinematic look, and it's going to give you a smooth look to the video, as opposed to if somebody's filming at 30 frames per second and they think, oh, this is going to look cool in slow motion, I'm going to slow it down 5 times. Well, now you've got, if you have 6 frames in that second, and you're going to be able to see that, the eye's going to be able to pick that up, and it just doesn't look as nice. So
for sure, there's a lot of that.
Yep, absolutely. So I make sure all my cameras are at the very least filming at 60 frames per second. And if you really have some places where you think you're really going to want to slow it down, I'd bump it up to 120 if the camera has that capability. As far as the equipment I have for editing, I use Cyberlink Power Director. It's sort of a step below Adobe Premiere Pro, which I think is the Windows, sort of the professional level editing software. The unfortunate part about that is when I was looking at getting it, you could only lease it, I believe. It was $20 a month, and I wasn't going to do that. I think Cyberlink Power Director is about $100, and that's your program. It does way more than I'm ever going to do with it, and so that's definitely my recommendation for that. As far as tips editing, I think one of the biggest things I found that really makes things go quick is I'm constantly trying to sync 2 different or sometimes 3 different videos together.
Sure.
And so for the longest time, I was looking, when you bring your video up in the timeline of the software, you've got your video, and then you've got a little wave format. It just kind of looks like a little, like a sign format. And you would try to link, you try to find a spike here and a spike here and try to link them up, and then you'd play the video over and over again and listen to it and try to see if you could get it to sync up. Most editing softwares have a button where you can highlight those 2 pieces of film and hit a button, and it'll sync the audio for you. That saved me hours.
That's awesome. See, something I didn't know. I have Adobe Premiere Pro,
Oh, sure.
and so the funny part about that is my computer is not capable of running it smoothly. It's definitely not powerful enough for that software. So the reason why I haven't posted many videos or edited videos is because after it crashes 3 times and you've got 6 hours in a video, you want to put your foot through the computer. So
Yep.
I just chose not to edit for the last year because of this. So new computer coming for 2021 for me, to say the least.
Yeah, for sure. That was one thing I did when I decided I wanted to do this a little bit more regularly, was to got a computer that could handle, not only the software, but it's got to be able to handle that frame rate that you're looking at getting.
Yes, exactly.
And I guess I failed to mention I film in 1080p. 4K is a big thing, but I'm not a documentary maker. I don't need it to, 1080 is what most TVs can handle anyway. There's not a lot of people watching things in 4K that would make it worth me filming in 4K.
Right.
My computer would just start smoking and probably blow up if I tried to 4K video.
You'll also need to get 1,700 more memory cards to be able to take it too.
So I guess that's another thing I should mention. Probably the two biggest complaints I get from people that they'll buy a GoPro and they'll use it once and the battery life is junk, and as you mentioned, you have to have memory cards to keep filling up these hours and hours of filming, especially musky fishing. I mean, we could go 12 hours of nothing, and all of a sudden in the last 2 hours we catch 2 or 3 fish. So when I film with the GoPros, you can film on a loop, and what that does is it starts filming, and I'll try to explain this the best way I can. It films like this, a chunk, basically. It films a minute, and then it films another minute, and then it films a minute, and then it films a minute. And once you get to the 6th minute, it gets rid of that first 1 minute chunk.
Gotcha.
And then it films the next one. And then, on and on and on. As it films more, it gets rid of more. So I can be fishing for 10 hours, say. We hook a fish, get it in the net, take care of it, let it go, and I'll hit stop. Once I hit stop, the GoPro keeps the past 5 minutes of what happened. So we film continuously, but you're not filling up. I can film with a 32 gigabyte card, and I can film all day, multiple catches, and not even close to filling it up. So that is one thing that I recommend, is filming on that loop. If you're not comfortable with, there's a 5 minute and a 20 minute. I wish they made a 10-minute loop. That would be perfect.
Sure.
5, I have to keep track of. Once we get that fish in the boat, I look at the time and give myself 4 minutes. If that fish isn't back in the water, I'll stop the cameras to save everything, restart them, finish what we're doing, and then you can stop them, and that way you've saved everything and not lost anything. Because that is the thing. If you let that fish go and then you wait 5 minutes and go, oh shoot, I forgot to stop, well, you've just lost everything.
Gotcha.
So it does require a little bit of, you have to keep track of what's going on when you do that. The other thing that I do, it's, because those, like I mentioned before, the batteries only last maybe an hour and a half in a GoPro. So what I started doing very early on was plugging the GoPros in and running them off of a battery pack. You can buy the battery packs that you would charge a cell phone up with. I think they're usually like 10 or 13 milliamp hour, 10 or 13,000 milliamp hour chargers. They maybe cost 20, 30 bucks. And via a USB cord, you can plug your camera into that and pretty much run it all day.
Right.
So yeah, those are the top 2 things I tell people is if you want filming to not be a pain in the butt, you have to be able to not change batteries all the time. Yep. So that's where the power comes in, and then you and not have to change SD cards all the time, and that's where looping comes in.
Perfect. Those are 2 phenomenal tips right there. One of them, which I did not know, so that's super awesome. I got a quick question. Jeremiah Parson asked, "What are your thoughts on if the borders will be open for 2021?"
I've been getting that question a lot lately. Back when everything started back in March, I thought, oh, I'll be fine for my June trip. Well, that didn't happen. I thought, well, August for sure we'll be able to go up there. Well, that obviously didn't happen. I think at this point, I know they're looking at rolling out the vaccine for like the tier 1, the frontline workers in the hospitals and everything late this month into January. I think tier 2, which I believe I would fall under working at the wastewater treatment plant, is up through May, basically. And then after that, everybody can get it. So, I mean, hopefully everything goes smooth, and I'm really keeping my fingers crossed, because I usually go up to Eagle Lake for the opener, which is the 3rd weekend in June. So it's definitely going to be touch and go. I would think, gosh, worst case scenario, I would think middle of the summer, because there's so many resorts up there that are, I don't even want to think about how many are going to go under. Right. With where we're at right now. You know, if this is prolonged through another season, I mean, there's probably going to be massive amounts of resorts that are going to be defunct, because there's just no way to have money. And I don't think I was talking to Marie, the lady that her and her husband run the place we stay at, and I asked them, have they got any government assistance? They said they hadn't gotten any. So, you know, luckily they've got side jobs they can do to keep them afloat for a while, but it's tough up there right now. I'm really hoping for, you know, May or June they'll be able to open the borders up.
Yeah,
at least for outdoorsmen, you know.
Oh, definitely. That's all the way around. Unfortunately, I know a lot of that travel restrictions and stuff like that hurt a lot of people this past spring and even this fall as well. Still, so that's tough to hear. To finalize everything, normally I like to do this with anybody we have on here now, is if you had to pick your top 5 baits to throw all year, what are those going to be? And then if you could only pick 2 of those to go out and go catch a muskie, like, I don't know about today going forward, but in the last 3 weeks, what would those 2 be and why?
Sure. So top 5, definitely a bucktail, and I'll try to show them as we go along here. This is a smaller bucktail. It's double 8s. You can get them all the way up to double 10s. I don't like to throw those double 10s anymore because it's a lot of work. These double 8s are a lot nicer to throw, but definitely number 1 bait that any muskie fisherman should have is a double or a single 8 bucktail. I mean, that's something that you can throw from the beginning of the season. And, you know, I guess I have to qualify that because, you know, in Wisconsin and Minnesota, we've got seasons for muskies. A lot of other places in the muskie range, they can fish them year round. So for us anyway, in May, when the water's starting to warm up, smaller bucktails, that's definitely something I want to have. Top water baits would definitely be another one. I mean, not only are they're fun to catch a fish on because you get this massive explosion and everything, but they're quite effective as well. If I can throw everything into a category of rubber baits, you know, whether they're Medusas or Bulldogs or whatever, but these little types of guys, dive and rise baits. You know, the Suic is probably the most popular dive and rise bait, but this is one that we have. It's called a Navin. You know,
I've seen you throw that one a ton in videos.
Probably this one right here.
That's probably it. Yep, that looks like it right there.
But we've got a couple different sizes of those. So any sort of dive and rise bait, and then probably to round it out, you know, a minnow style bait. You know, this is a 5-inch one. They go all the way up to 10, 12 inches. But I mean, those are probably the top 5 as far as something you should have if you're going to start building a muskie arsenal. Those would be the top 5, you know, the styles of baits that I would go for. Right now, which we've got fishable water down here. The Madison chain is still open. I might actually try to get out on Saturday. This time of year, big rubber baits are definitely one. The Medusa that I showed, the swim style bait. You know, just casting those out to steep ledges, weed edges. The fish will still relate to the weeds right now, and just, you know, the Medusa, you kind of, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but you pull it and then you retrieve the line to it and you pull it, so you get kind of a jumping action.
Sure.
That bait going through the water. The minnow style bait there, you can just reel straight in. That and then a dive and rise would probably be the two baits if you're going to go out today from the end of the season are the ones that I would probably go for.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you being on. I appreciate you taking the time. I think this was an awesome show. A lot of information here, especially if you're looking at doing the filming and fishing side of things. One last question. Nick asks, recommendation on a first muskie setup, like rod reel combo. If you had to get one today, what would that be?
So I'm a little biased that way too. Chaos Tackle does have rods. We've got the Assault Stick rod, which is the price point on that's about 180. We just came out with one called the 2020. It's a higher modulus rod. They're all telescopic. The musky rods are 9 foot plus anymore. Anything under that is sort of strange. So, you've got these 9 foot rods. Guys can't get them in their trucks. So Rick decided we need to have a telescopic rod that people can, I think they go down to about 7.5 feet, give or take. So that 2020 rod in what we call Surgical Strike, which is a medium heavy rod with a Shimano Tranx 400 high speed, is probably the rod and reel that I use 80% of the time. It's not going to handle real big baits, but if you're just getting into musky fishing, it's going to handle your smaller bucktails, your topwaters, your little glide baits, your little minnow baits, that sort of thing. So yeah, a 9 foot medium heavy Surgical Strike Assault Stick with the Tranx 400 HG would be my absolute go-to setup for somebody.
Perfect, man.
And I think the reel is about 270, and one of our Assault Stick rods is 180. The 2020 rods are 350. So you're still looking at $450. But if you're part of the musky pages, there's guys sell stuff all the time. I mean, you could end up with a nice combo for $200-300 if you keep your eye on that.
Oh, definitely, especially right now, this time of year, guys putting the stuff away for the season, liquidating some stuff for next year and whatnot. So, yep. Hey, man, I appreciate you taking the time, coming on with me. Next year, I know I'm going to have to get out and do some other species. I've actually only caught 3 muskies in my life, but they were all on buzzbaits on one body of water on the same day, and not one of them was over 30 inches. So it was really cool. I don't know if you're familiar with High Falls, but that's where it was at. Yeah. That was actually during a bass tournament, and I was irritated, to say the least, about that.
Well, see, that's fun. There's a lot of times when we're fishing opening day in Madison, and we'll talk to bass fishermen, and they're the ones that are catching the muskies, and we're the ones that are catching bass on our big baits. So
oh yeah,
it could go no other way.
Oh, perfect, man. Again, if you guys are interested, check out some of these videos that Brian's put together. Angling Anarchy on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. If you got any questions, feel free to shoot him a message. I mean, from what I've heard and stuff like that, he's been great at getting back to people and has no problem helping anybody out. So, again, like I said, Angling Anarchy on all social media pages. And give the page a like, share the video and stuff like that. And basically, we'll call it a wrap, guys. Thanks for being on, Brian.
All right. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yep. Thanks, man. Later.
Yep.